Now, welcome to another Let's Talk Some Andor, which means spoilers ahead for the latest episode, which is episode 7, called Announcement. So, if you haven't seen it, you don't want anything ruined, it is a really good time to click away. Alright, so let's kick it off with your usual kind of brief review of the episode, since I give my rather lengthy one on the other channel.
Brief. I liked it.
Good review. And now moving on to the comment. No. I mean, do you got any more to say before we dig in, or shall we just dig in?
If you want me to talk, it would be a whole video unto itself of
fair enough.
What I found interesting and enjoyed during this. So
yeah, I actually had like a 20-some minute review, and I clipped off a good part of it because it's just I can go into it so much, which is so refreshing for Star Wars. Usually, when I watch some of these shows, I'm like, well, it's not a ton to talk about, really, if you want to get in depth. It's just this kind of more surface level stuff, whereas we are finally getting something to really dig our teeth into.
As Gilroy would say, those nuance.
Yes, nuance.
Details.
God, nuance. The return of nuance. That's what this show should be called. Mm-hmm. But anyway, shall we get to the comments?
Sure.
And I know we always start with the top rated comment, and this time we're kind of going to do that. It came to us from Jeremy Davin, who wrote a very long comment, or maybe initially a shorter one and then edited it to be a bit longer. Because generally long comments don't get a ton of likes because people don't generally read them. And that's no offense to you, Jeremy. Great job if you're watching. Thank you for leaving it. But we're probably going to kind of skip it because you do a really good overview of the entire episode, which wouldn't leave us much to talk about, I think. Or kind of a lot to talk about at the same time.
Probably too much to talk about. We talk about something that was probably covered in every subsequent comment.
Yeah.
All at once. And yeah.
Anyway, before we talk so long about the comment, we could have just read it. Let's move on to the next comment.
M. Bricks says, as this show continues, I can't help but just appreciate more and more the attention to detail this show has given to its characters. The story is so well told and woven together, and that even though there's no action present on the surface, you do not feel bored. You can feel the tension when Mon is talking to her banker friend, or when Andor is arguing with Marva. The dialogue actually reminds me a lot of the original Thrawn books, which I think is definitely a good thing.
Yeah, it has the EU vibe to it. It has a good Star Wars book vibe, which the books are always fantastic because they kind of have the time to do the things or get into the things that the movies never really do, which is the finer workings and the nuance of the galaxy, right? How this galaxy actually functions and operates, what the people really look like in their kind of daily lives. These are things the movies have, maybe scratched the surface of, but never had the chance to dive into. And Andor is diving into that. It does feel like a very well-written EU book.
Absolutely. We've been talking about it over and over throughout the weeks, the attention to detail and the character building. Every scene that the characters are in seems important. They're not just like having some stupid idle conversation or in the background. They're always doing something that is relevant, multi-layered and relevant. Yeah,
and it's still and it doesn't exist just to exist. That's what I love. There's never, like you're saying, there's never a scene where I'm like, well, that scene kind of just felt like it didn't need to be in there. It doesn't feel like I'm watching this. Well, you could have just edited that out, or that doesn't, or that's just mindless action. No, everything has its place and its purpose. It is extremely well written.
Well, one thing with the scene with Mon talking to her banker friend, that was such a layered scene.
Oh my God, that scene was brilliant.
You see those two talking and having a very detailed and hidden conversation as she moves around the room, reminding him to smile.
I love that,
because they're constantly being seen, and she very obviously knows that. But you've got her husband. You see him in the background. He sends the daughter over to ask Mom if she can leave. He could have said she could leave. He wanted that conversation interrupted.
Yeah, probably.
And eventually he can't stand enough that he comes over himself to take her from the conversation. Not because he suspects that she's doing rebel activity.
He's a jealous husband.
He's jealous.
Yeah, or maybe just doesn't. I don't know if he's jealous as much as he doesn't want his wife. It seems like their relationship is estranged.
Next comment comes from Minty Blitz. I cannot believe how good this episode was. When you asked if Andor felt like Star Wars, I voted no. But I didn't mean it in a bad way. And this episode kind of exemplifies what I meant. The fact that it feels like a political drama more than it does Star Wars makes me so happy because it will open the doors for more diverse storytelling within Star Wars. By the way, Cyril is still my favorite character, and I really hope for him to join the rebellion. I just hope Cyril finds happiness.
I don't think
Poor
Cyril...
man.
No. Cyril's never going to find happiness. That's the point of the character. He is just going to... He is down the wrong path, essentially. He's trying to do the right thing. He wants to be a good person. That's the beauty of Cyril. Like, he's done nothing bad yet. He's done nothing wrong. Like, we've talked about it before. Like, there was a murder. He is part of the team that...
Yes.
Or, an organization who's supposed to solve the crime. And he fails at that, yes, but that he gets punished for trying to do the right thing. And he should have had support from above, right? It shouldn't have been him kind of taking the initiative and going against his superior.
Absolutely. And it was so... Unfortunately, what he was trying to do didn't get handled the best way possible. And then the Empire closed down the whole facility. That's all crushing weight on him. It's all his fault. It's more guilt. He's the reason that his entire corporation no longer has a job.
I mean, yeah.
He forced to move back in with his mom, who is like, here, I got you a pencil pushing job. Make us proud. And she criticizes everything. He tailors his suit because he wanted a higher collar. This isn't the first time we've heard that he tailors his suit either.
That's right, yeah.
And his mom's criticizing him and tearing him apart. Oh, this means you're insecure. And just leave him alone. Let him have his cereal. Let him play with his action figures and find a job on his own.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's not his fault, though. Even what happened with the, on Ferrix where everything went wrong, his superiors should have stepped up and done their job, right?
Right.
He shouldn't have had to been the one making the plan.
But he's the type of guy who it is his fault in his head because his mom makes everything his fault.
Sure. I mean, I get that. He takes it personally. He takes everything kind of personally because he's so used to being, berated by his own mother, which...
Yes.
Not cool, man.
Not cool.
Cool.
Question Man says, Andor does not disappoint. It demonstrates fan service done right. Very satisfying. And the drama in this episode is completely on point.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about fan service. Fan service to me, again, is something that didn't need to be in there, but it's in there simply so fans can point at the screen and go, ooh, look, cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, even including the security droids, you could say it was fan service because we know he's eventually going to get with K2SO. It could have just been more shore troopers.
Yeah, it was kind of foreshadowing in a way, but yeah.
But like I'm saying, it didn't need to be in there, but by putting it in there, it's kind of reminding us about Cassian's going to have a relationship with a K2 droid.
Yeah, I mean, Yularen in this episode could be called fan service, but he's the head of the ISB. They've just had their biggest, probably, incident, or maybe one of the biggest incidents, in the reign of the Empire, having, 80 million credits stolen. So, of course, Yularen's going to come in and be like, what the hell are you guys doing? Now we have to close the fist on the rest of the galaxy. Yeah. You guys got to step up and do your job. It's not fan service to bring him in. It makes sense that he would show up and lay down the law.
He even name-dropped the Emperor.
He did. He got name dropped several times. I'm loving. See, that's what I thought they would do with Palpatine. He would be name dropped. You might see some kind of image of him in the background giving a speech about something. He's never going to be in this, which is perfect. You don't need him in this. He's going to be that ghoul in the background, right? That overbearing overlord, the darkness that is out there, but you're never going to see.
Right. And move on to the next comment. We got 310 Yuma. Mon Mothma's family relationship is very interesting. Her family look like they'll turn her in if need be. She's disappointed that her family can't be trusted. I think her husband will turn her in. I think her daughter does love her deep down. You can just.
But her daughter might turn her in.
Her daughter wouldn't turn her in. They butt heads, but I don't think she would. I think the father will.
I don't know.
I think Perrin will.
I didn't even consider it. I forget who mentioned it to me. I read so many comments, talk to so many people about Star Wars that I sometimes forget who says what. But to the person who said it to me, I'm like, it clicked. I'm like, yeah. What if her daughter because she's not going to comprehend what it even means to turn her in. How much trouble her mother would get in. Or her mother could go to her father and say, look what I saw mom doing this, talking to that guy from the party.
That I could see, the daughter talking to her dad
I don't know that she'll go to Palpatine and knock on his door and be like, hey,
but I don't think she's
Mom.
calling up the Imperial troops.
The ISB, yeah.
Hey,
no, I don't think
my
that.
mom's doing something shady.
Sure, but she might tell her dad, and then her dad might be the one who kind of confronts her and says, well, the troops are already on your way, so you're screwed, Mom. Ha-ha.
Ha-ha.
I don't know, something along those lines.
I don't think Mom's going to get caught, though. I think there's going to be a wedge in the family.
It's not for a while yet.
I'm not even sure Mom's going to get outed, though.
I don't know.
I think this could divide and splinter the family, and maybe the family breaks apart, but I don't think she's actually getting caught here.
Well, certainly. I mean, there's too much setup for the family, or the husband or the daughter, for somebody not to figure out and for it to be a thing in the episode. What becomes of it is the real question.
All right, writer guy. Brilliant stuff. Unfortunately, it was driving away the, ooh, go boom crowd. The good thing is that this already has been greenlit for Season 2, which means we should get the full story. A lot of popular YouTube reviewers are ignoring the series completely, with some not even bothering to give it a chance. I feel almost like I've found a hidden gem. This is seriously too good for Disney Plus. It has surprised the hell out of me just how much I'm enjoying the ride.
I think the most refreshing thing about Andor, and as someone who has, of course, put up many, critiques of previous Disney Plus shows, I don't see, and granted, I know it's ironic, I don't really watch Star Wars videos on YouTube. I try, as I've said before, I just try to do my own thing, or we try to do our own thing. I don't want to be influenced by what others are saying or others are doing. Respect to them, no, disrespect
they do their
or
thing,
anything.
we do our thing.
Exactly. So I try to stay independent in a way. That said, like I don't get like videos in my feed. I'm not hearing people bringing up videos that are like tearing apart Andor.
No.
So
what is to tear apart?
That's what I'm saying.
They have built such a tightly knit box. What are you tearing apart?
Yeah, you could say you find it boring, you find it slow, you don't think it's Star Wars. That's fine, but those are all like subjective opinions, right? Those are. It's very hard to just go in there and objectively tear the show apart. I would, if you do, I don't even know how you would pull that off because it is well written. I don't know that you can argue that this is a well written, nuanced show. You can not like it, that's fine, but there's just, and in terms of like the lore, and nothing is like being broken. I'm not watching this like, oh my god, they just ruined this part of the story.
Just N says, dude, who would have ever guessed this would be the most interesting and expansive show this year? Loving it so much. That goes with WTT 143. This episode genuinely flew by. About 40 minutes, never dissolved so quickly. It was phenomenal. Never before in Star Wars has dialogue felt so purposeful, meaningful, and thought-provoking. It's nearly early Game of Thrones level. Every episode sucks me in immediately, regardless of the lack of action. If only Lucasfilm took remedial marketing, this would be a big hit. It also goes with Ryan Dodrill. I can't believe how much I'm loving this. Every scene was so good, but my favorite by far was where Marv was telling Cassian she was going to do something. The acting and the writing created such a weight and so much power. The show is not just good by comparison to what came before. The show is legitimately some of the best Star Wars we've had in a long, long time.
Yeah, that goes with what we were just talking about. Like, the show stands on its own. I've had a lot of people say, you were so disappointed by the last two shows that you're just talking this one up because in comparison, it's so much better. No.
In practice.
If everything Disney Star Wars had been flawless so far, I would still be impressed with this show.
When people say it doesn't feel like Star Wars, maybe this show is helping to expand what Star Wars is, what Star Wars should feel like, in a good direction, instead of Star Wars constantly going more towards the downward younger viewer department. Why not elevate it too?
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, that kind of goes with the last comment again, too, talking about how it's more diverse. It's just taking on different aspects. And look, I say it all the time. I know there are people who like, this is what Star Wars is to me, how it should feel. I get that. Like, we all have our personal experiences with Star Wars and how we feel about it and when we saw it for the first time and all these emotions. I get that. A lot of people, they have their own set what Star Wars should be, but I am one who totally agrees with you that it needs to kind of expand. It needs to reach out to that adult audience. Because let's be honest, it's been around for 45 years. Most people who love Star Wars are not young, right? I'm not saying young people can't get into the franchise, but you have to cater to this older crowd who wants something a little more sophisticated. And this is on the level of a Game of Thrones, right? It's almost completely driven by the characters and conversations. Go back and watch Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is 95% talking and then 5% something, wow, that was unexpected, and some action, right?
I mean, in my opinion, and I know this will be explosive, I guess, I find this show much better than Game of Thrones, the current House of the Dragon series. I find this much better. This is much preferred to me.
It's preferred to me too because it's I know where you're going with this because we've talked a lot about House of Dragon, not in a video or anything, but you don't like any of the characters on a personal level in House of the Dragon, which I get. Like, they're all kind of like we could have a fun conversation about that.
We can't go there. The season finale is tonight, and then we can form opinions.
It's tomorrow night, but
yeah, season finale is tomorrow night, and then we can form opinions.
Yeah, but we can talk about it finally. But no, like I was saying before, one of the interesting things about Andor is there doesn't seem to be a lot of hate. It's like people who don't enjoy it, fine. But there's not a lot of videos out there. There aren't a lot of people just like actively negative against it because, it might not be your thing. but I don't think it's like, offending you like some of the other Star Wars may have offended people, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Zachary Clark says the scene with Cinta looking up at the Star Destroyer almost sent chills down my spine. It's great to see the Empire feel so much like a threat in this show. I thought this episode was not as slow as some previous ones. I'm excited to see where Cassian goes from here.
What I find fascinating is that Andor is kind of the opposite of A New Hope, how it kind of starts. Like A New Hope, a Star Destroyer flies overhead, we have stormtroopers, taking over and shooting a bunch of people. Darth Vader shows, like, the Empire is, like, immediately in your face. Whereas in Andor, it's this, this slow reveal. Like,
yeah.
It's this more ominous threat, like we were talking about before. It's not in your face. And it both work extremely well, don't get me wrong, but I'm really enjoying this more subtle approach. I'm liking that the Empire feels terrifying and ominous.
Right, and we even got to see, we saw the shore troopers in action. We did briefly see stormtroopers, but we didn't see them really doing too much other than patrolling. The shore troopers even were scary.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the authority alone that they wield.
Yeah. No, I agree. Everything with the Empire is scary. Like, you get scared just seeing them on screen now for your heroes, because, like, oh, God, what's going to happen next? Especially with Andor and kind of what happens to him, which I think goes along with a comment we have coming up.
Bowen Horn, I love the way they're setting up the cutthroat nature of the ISB. This could be a good way for them to lose while not looking like fools. They can be very competent at their jobs, but then be so busy trying to one-up each other that they faceplant when it comes to getting things done. I think this also says a lot about the self-serving nature of the dark side, even if they're not directly involved with the Force. They have all of this great power, but their selfish nature will be their undoing.
No, I mean, that's why people are saying this doesn't feel like Star Wars. To me, it does, because that comment hits it on the head. Like, the Empire is the dark side in a manner of speaking. They are selfish. If they weren't, they would be unstoppable. Yes. Imagine if everybody we saw in the Empire was like, let's work together and figure this out. Like, the Rebellion would have no chance.
No.
Whereas with the Rebellion, they have to trust each other. They have to have faith in something greater than themselves. They have to, work together. Otherwise, they're never going to win. It's not lightsabers and, the Force and Jedi and Sith, but it is still, good versus evil, selfish versus selfless.
Absolutely. James McHale, I love the irony that as a result of the Rebel heist he participated in, Andor actually increased his own sentence from a routine 6 months to 6 years, due to extending all the sentencing as part of the Empire strengthening their grip. MK80, ironic how in the scene with Bix, Cassian still doesn't fully realize the consequences of his actions. And then he's sentenced to jail because his most recent actions, and has to come face to face with that. Also really enjoyed seeing the K2SO droids, and I hope at the end of the series we see how K2 is reprogrammed.
Well, I do think I think Gilroy has talked about K2SO showing up eventually, but...
in Season 2.
Yeah, but there is so much irony in this episode. They could have called the episode itself Irony instead of Announcement, because it is so ironic. Like, Cassian, he doesn't understand, like, how this is his fault. He's like, he tries to blame it on Tim, with 2 M's.
Yeah. Oh, it's all Tim's fault. It's hard you can't really blame the dead so well.
No. And then, like, him with the Marva, that I love that scene, because here's Marva talking about how I want to stand up and fight now, because in my own small way, whatever that eventually means, because I've been inspired by these other rebels who have stepped up. And it's her son.
Yeah, he doesn't even say it's him.
No, because he doesn't want to.
Because he doesn't see himself as a rebel.
He doesn't see himself as a hero. He knows the truth. He didn't go there to be a hero. He went there to make some money.
Well, and he is honorable. He did give Bix the money to pay back all of his debts.
Yeah, but you get my point. My point is, like, he had no intention of, like, being a hero and to do this inspiring thing for the galaxy to spark the rebellion, essentially, or part of the spark. We know there are other sparks as well. So I find it great. It's so ironic that here he is. He's listening to his own mother talk about the heroic deed he did, and he won't acknowledge it. He's like, no, Mom, like, what are you talking about? You're coming with me. Let's get out of here.
Mm-hmm. Final comment, Mutely777. This series has been a major turning point in Disney Star Wars for me. All those slow burn episodes are paying off so much each new week as the characters become more intertwined in this beautifully written plot. The Mon Mothma story has become so compelling and fascinating to watch. Her scenes with Luthen are so strong, and both actors portray the gravitas of both of their situations brilliantly. Unlike the previous Disney shows, I cannot think of any character so far that has no place in this story as it unfolds. This is a testament to the brilliant writing and direction of this whole production.
Yeah, well said. I do hope this is sort of a turning point. I hope some lessons are kind of learned from this. And I mean, the ratings recently kind of came out. I'll probably talk about that in a separate video. But I mean, I hope they can look at this and realize how much people are enjoying this. I hope people are enjoying this. I hope there is actually an audience, or it'll pick up momentum, and people, word of mouth might help push this thing, because this is what I know. This is what Star Wars needs. It needs to be, again, it needs to realize that it does have a lot of adult fans, and that doesn't mean you ignore the kids or that you can't have these more fun and frivolous stories in this universe. But let's be real. Like, most people who watch Star Wars who are really vested are older people who I think want a more complex, story.
Well, and I do worry a little bit about this show. I mean, I don't want it to suffer the way I think Solo might have suffered a few repercussions from following in the trilogy that shall not be named.
Because of Kenobi. Is that why you're saying Andor?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if Andor could suffer at all because of what came its predecessor,
I do think it
Kenobi,
is.
which got deadpanned.
Because on the other channel, we did a joint video kind of talking about some of this, and all the comments, not all the comments, but a majority of comments were talking about how they've kind of checked out after Kenobi, that it was the last straw. And I kind of talked about that before Kenobi came out. I'm like, almost like a plea to Lucasfilm, like, please, if this sucks, I don't think you realize the damage you're going to do to your franchise. I don't think you realize how many people you're going to lose, how many fans. And I didn't realize probably how bad it was until I started to read the comments, and like, so many people. And I know I'm the negative crowd. I get that. Everybody always thinks I'm a hater and I attract only people who hate Star Wars. I get all that.
And yet all these comments seem to say that you
attract
people who like Star Wars.
I know. I actually just tell you what I think instead of tell you what I think you want to hear. Go figure. But there are a lot of people. It's not just my audience. There are a lot of people. Just look at random sites online who talk about Star Wars and look at the comments. You're going to see a lot of people very disappointed by Kenobi, and I think it was a big blow to Star Wars.
And I'd really like to see Andor as a turning point. And I'm not saying every story has to be just like Andor's, that in depth and everything.
No, God,
I just think you take your time. You write a solid story with a script that doesn't contradict anything in the lore, and is good and enjoyable for people to watch.
Yeah.
Don't mess up legacy characters. At least don't mess up movie and TV show plot. I understand that you don't seem to care about the books the way in games and comics the way you said you were going to care about those things, but the live action media and the animated specials and the shows do not contradict those.
Yeah. It's not that hard. Not if you care. Not if you know what you're doing.
And if you really care, don't contradict your written material either.
Yeah.
You said you weren't going to. You promised.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of a whole other... Yeah. But anyway, I think that's all we got for you this time. So do take to the comments below and tell us what you thought of this episode of Andor. Tell us what you think of this series so far. And do you think people are watching this? Do you think this is what Star Wars needs, or is this the wrong direction? Whatever the case may be, leave your comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.